What's up, everybody? EBC Media here with Idaho Underground Sports Network, and this is my very first own gem session that I've got to do by myself. BST, GTG, they've got some other things going on this week, but we still wanted to try to get a gem session in, so I'm going to sit here. I'm going to make it very simple. I'm going to kind of go over the games from this past week, the scores, kind of what happened. A lot happened, as I'm sure most of you know. And then we'll talk about what's coming up this week and what we've got coming down the pipeline in the next couple of weeks. We've got the district championship set for the SIC, and we've got pretty much all the play-in games set except for, I believe, one. We still got to figure out who's going to be the 2-3 seed over in, I believe it is the Foothills Division. So let's get started here. Let's jump right into it. It's going to be a little bit different without my boys here, without Game Time Guru leading things. So bear with me. We still wanted, like I said, we still wanted to jump on here and have a gem session, make sure everybody got the love that they deserve. And we just kind of keep everybody up to date with what's going on with Idaho high school football, man. It's been crazy. What a crazy week. Probably the craziest week we've had all year. Obviously, we had number one versus number two. Number one, Rocky visited number two, Meridian, which we've been calling the game of the year, game of the decade, whatever. We hope to potentially see a part two of this, especially after what part one looked like. I'm going to lead off with this and then touch back on this towards the end of the episode. But wow, what a game. Not enough words to explain this game. Very defensive, very stout on both sides of the ball. Came down to a couple big plays. The ball bounced Meridian's way a couple times. It bounced Rocky's way a couple times. Could have gone either way. There was a play, I believe, in the first half where the ball was snapped over Zeke Martinez's head, off of his hand, bounces. It could have bounced anyway. If it would have bounced to the left, Rocky could have scooped it and scored, but it bounced right back to him. He turned, a broken play. Found Corbin Freeze down the sideline for about a 35, 40-yard gain. That kept the drive alive there for them. I believe they ended up scoring some points on that drive. I believe that was part of their first touchdown drive. Not 100% on that, trying to recall everything I saw. But, man, Meridian's offense played as good as we've seen them play this year. Obviously, we've seen them blow up and score a bunch of points against other teams. But against this Rocky team, Zeke Martinez really showed up. Zeke Martinez was our offensive player of the week, along with Parker Rushton from Bora and Ian Duarte from Eagle, which I'll touch on. But Zeke Martinez was 13 for 18 for 183 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was extremely efficient again. Yards per completion were impressive again. And he made the plays when he needed to make the plays, man. And Corbin Freeze really stepped up. He had one of his better games of the year. He had 5 receptions, 107 yards, and a touchdown. And then he had a huge play towards the end of the game. Meridian only took 2 shots deep, which is not like them. They like to throw the deep ball. Martinez missed Freeze, underthrew Freeze on the first one. Parker Simonson almost picked it off. But then later in the game, towards the end of the fourth quarter, I believe it was 2nd and about 7, and Martinez play action, and he hits Corbin Freeze on the deep post. Freeze catches it, takes it down to, I believe it was around the 10 to 15-yard line. They ended up scoring on a Riley Byington swing pass on 3rd and goal, which extended the lead to 8. And then Rocky Mountain comes back, and with 1 second left, Tegan Sweeney hits Luke Lucchini on a Hail Mary, their first touchdown of the game. And Lucchini, it was a tip ball. I believe it was off Ethan Beard and Nathan Reynolds' hands. It flies back. Lucchini right into the breadbasket, falls to the ground. And then the first 2-point conversion to tie the game was a questionable pass interference call. I believe it was probably pass interference because the DBs did not turn their head. They kind of just jumped straight into CJ Jacobson on a jump ball. And then so the ball was moved to the 1-yard line. Rocky Mountain's best. They've got these Division I offensive linemen and a Division I running back in Art Williams went straight at Meridian's best, their front 7, which we've talked about all year. This Meridian defense could be the best overall unit in high school football. And Meridian, Jake Hartsoe, Corbin Meisner, King Kai up front, They washed the linemen, did their job, and then Carson Gooley, Ryan Corder, Nathan Reynolds come flying in and stop him on the 1 yard line, and Meridian wins on a goal line stand, a 2-point conversion goal line stand. Meridian's best against Rocky's best. Man, it was something to watch. It was unbelievable. There were so many names I could throw out on who played well. Defensive player of the week for us was the Meridian linebacking core. Shout out to Nathan Reynolds also for his punting. He had 2 punts inside the 5 yard line, which were very impressive as well. But defensively, that Meridian front 7, the linebackers specifically were making plays all night. Carson Gooley for me was eye popping. I mean, he was everywhere. He was hitting. He was talking. He played extremely well against Rocky last year. He had hit of the year last year against Rocky, and he turns it up a notch against the better competition. I remember he played well against Mountain View and Eagle as well. So anyway, Carson Gooley and his boys at linebacking core, our Idaho Underground Sports defensive players of the week. Shout out to them. But man, Art Williams, Parker Weatherly, Parker Simonson, I mentioned him already. Those guys played well defensively for Rocky. Rocky was making plays on defense, along with Meridian. But listen, this game came down to, the ball just bounced Meridian's way more often than it bounced Rocky's way. There were multiple plays in this game that had they gone a different way, this game probably would have ended differently. Dawson Anderson missed his first field goal of the year. He's missed 1 extra point and 1 field goal all year, and it was 2-3 feet to the right. He started 2 for 2 on field goals, missed his third. It was a tough spot. It was a deep field goal. He misses that. He doesn't miss that. Rocky wins on that Hail Mary. So, I mean, obviously we always say, it's so cliche, a game of inches. This could have gone either way. Meridian found a way to close the door. They made the big play when they needed to. They deserve the win. I believe we will see this matchup again. Who knows? Anything can happen in football. One play can change anything, like I was just talking about. But what a game! It's been the game of the year so far. I hope to see it again. The Meridian Warriors take over the number 1 spot. They beat the Grizzlies, first time in 11 years. A great win. Great job by that Meridian defense, the Meridian offense, Rocky as well. And I really appreciated more than anything the respect that these guys showed each other. So after the game, these guys are all friends off the field for the most part, but there's that competitive edge and whatnot, a lot of talking going on. It was great to see these guys embrace each other, show the love for each other. And I know they hope to see each other again. So anyway, Rocky Mountain Meridian, wanted to give that an extensive rundown. Game of the year. This fantastic play all the way around. Del Rio, Byington, those running backs did their thing. Art Williams, Luke Lucchini, who for me is the receiver of the year in the SIC, regardless of what happens in this final week. Not a lot of, very intriguing games this final week. There is one that we'll talk about, but Luke Lucchini, for a guy that plays, 2.5 quarters a game, and plays some of his best ball against the best teams, he's been a monster. He got a preferred walk-on offer from University of Idaho. He's a kid who I think is a D1 receiver. Physically, he's got an edge to him as well. And Luke Lucchini, I want to give a shout out. Played very, very well. I think he had 95 yards receiving. I believe he had around 40 yards rushing. And he's a guy that just you have to know where he's at. But anyway, last shout out I'll give for this game is Mason Mayer and Spencer Holland, along with Landon Easton and Ethan Beard, the secondary. But Mason Mayer and Spencer Holland, I've been calling them out. They responded. They passed the test. I said they were going to be tested. They passed the test. Those guys are getting better and better, led by the leadership of Beard and Easton in the secondary. My boy Landon Easton here, Splinter, is showing why. So just great job to everybody. It was a great football game. Happy to be at it. Hope to see it again. Let's move on. Another game over in the East, Highland and Rigby. Wow. What a finish. What a game from what I'm hearing. Rigby started the fourth quarter up 42-21, and Highland made a crazy run all the way back to win the game. They won the game 43-42. Highland comes back down 3 touchdowns, wins the game 43-42. They take over sole possession of the 1 seed. I believe they're the 1 seed in that conference. Highland will play Madison this week in a game that is semi-intriguing. But I believe Highland, if they win that game, will end up with the 1 seed in the East. Rigby will now be the 2 seed, which creates a lot of interesting, intriguing matchups come playoff time, depending on what happens. But what a comeback by Drew Hymas and the boys over there for Highland. We saw Highland play Meridian. That came down to a goal line stand for Meridian to win that game. So Highland's for real. Obviously, Rigby's always for real. So we've got 5-6 teams right at this point, from what we know, who could go win a state championship. If you include Eagle and Mountain View in there as well, which I'll jump over to that game. Eagle and Mountain View played to essentially get into the district championship game. I predicted Mountain View. I didn't think Eagle was going to be able to score enough points to beat Mountain View. But Thunder Stadium, man, is such a tough place to play. Eagle's different there. That crowd is different. The environment's different. I compare it to Timberline for basketball. Just a tough place to go in and get a win. And Mountain View saw that. From what I hear, Eagle was pretty dominant in that game. They win 28-19. That defensive front for Eagle is special with the church boys, Seth Brock, Carter Davis, who just got a preferred walk-on offer to Stanford. Shout out to my guy, CD, a day one for me. Those guys are tough. When they can pin their ears back and go and they get a lead, when Eagle gets a lead, Eagle is tough to beat. Eli Makita, Dallas Sargent, Mikhail Snedden, Gavin Crawford, they got guys all over the place who can make plays, who can flip a game on the head. And so Eagle goes in and surprises most of us and dominates Mountain View at home. Now, Eagle will get their rematch with Meridian. That was a week 1 matchup that we saw. Meridian started slow in that game, turned the ball over a lot. Eagle did some good things in that game, and then they kind of finished slower. Eagle is a different team. Meridian's going to have to be ready, or Eagle will beat them in the district championship. Eagle is confident. They got dudes. They're ready. They're finding ways to get Duarte the ball. The freshman Noah Burnham is a big surprise, potentially newcomer of the year with what we're seeing from him, depending on how he shows out in the district championship game. He is Deegan Martino, a returning all-conference guy, goes out with an injury, and a freshman steps in and has just been phenomenal. So Eagle's here to stay. Eagle's a team that can make a run. They've got that home field advantage. They're going to have the home field advantage throughout the playoffs, most likely, depending on seeding and what happens. But the Mustangs and the Warriors will meet in the championship. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, Eagle beats Mountain View. The defense steps up. Duarte has a game. He was another one of our offensive player of the weeks. I think he had 175 yards. I believe he had a touchdown, possibly 2. Can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, Eagle beats Mountain View. Let's see. Got written down here. Post Falls surprises all of us and beats Lewiston 42 to 35. Post Falls at the start of the year, everyone thought they were going to be the cellar dweller in that conference, but they're not. Post Falls, I believe, is in first in the north. And they're making some noise, and they've gotten better and better and better from what we've seen. But Post Falls beats Lewiston in a game that we all, I think, expected Lewiston to win. Post Falls beats Lewiston. Coeur d'Alene beats Lake City 14-2 in a baseball score. Lake City, has one of the best players in the state in Zach Johnson at tight end. They're trying to do what they can to find ways to get him the ball, but Lake City's just down. But they'll be here for basketball season. Don't worry. They'll have plenty to say there. But CDA beats Lake City. It's going to be interesting to see how that north finishes up. But then we've got Bora and Boise. Parker Rushton had one of his monster games like he had last year, 235 yards, 4 touchdowns. They beat Boise 29-14 in a rivalry game. So shout out to Parker Rushton being who he is once again. Owyhee beats Kuna in a game between teams who both have lots of drama off the field. Great win for Owyhee. They needed it. I believe Owyhee is going to get Rocky Mountain for the play-in game, and that's a game that everybody wants to see. So Owyhee beats Kuna 20-17. Kuna's trying to find ways to get a win. They're reeling a little bit. I don't know. I believe they may have a shot to still get in. They're going to have to play the winner of Nampa and Mountain View to try to get into state. But there are some things going on at Nampa not Nampa, at Kuna, that are off the field things that are causing issues on the field, which is too bad. But Owyhee beats Kuna 20-17. And then we've got Nampa beating Skyview in a rivalry game. Shout out to our boys from Skyview, Max Cupforth, Aiden Martinez, and the boys. They fall to a very solid Nampa team. Nampa is currently second in their division. They're ahead of Mountain View. They will play this week. I'll touch on that in a minute. Nampa beats Skyview. Daniel Carrillo and Navarro and the boys doing their thing. They're fun to watch. Like I said, they beat Skyview. Middleton beats Capital 49-21. Middleton has not lost since that Meridian game, which Game Time Guru predicted. They've had a favorable schedule, and we once again are seeing tiers in the SIC. We're seeing the top 4 teams, and then we're seeing the next probably 4 or 5 teams, and then there's a bottom 3 or 4 teams, which is usually how it goes. But Middleton and Nampa, we did not know. We started them lower in our rankings. We did not know where they were going to be coming up to 5A, and they were both right there in that. Excuse me, I pulled a GTG. But Middleton and Nampa are right there in that 5-6 spot, and potentially 4, 5, 6 spot if Nampa can beat Mountain View at Mountain View this week. But anyway, that's our wrap up for the SIC and kind of the games that happened this week. Let's jump into what's going to be taking place this week, the final week of the regular season before we get to district championship week and play-in week, which is always exhilarating to see if we can have any upsets, see if anybody can sneak in to the state tournament. This week on Thursday, we've got Eagle at Bora, which is at Donna Larson Park. That's going to be an interesting game. It really doesn't have any ramifications on what happens at this point. If Bora loses, they have the same record as Owyhee in their division, but they beat Owyhee, so it's irrelevant in that case. But Bora Eagle still going to be a good game. Hopefully, everybody stays healthy, gets ready for the playoffs. But Parker Rushton going up against that front 7, I'm excited about. Seth Brock, like I said, Eli Makita, Carter Davis, the boys. There are going to be some big hits in that game. So Bora Eagle Thursday night, Donna Larson Park. Check out BST, I believe, is going to be there. Boise Sports Talk will be giving coverage on that game. I believe that may be on the Idaho Underground Sports page. So tune in for updates on that. And then Friday, we've got Rocky versus Timberline, an angry Rocky team against a winless Timberline team. Everybody stay healthy for that game. Everybody stay healthy. Kuna and Boise play. That will be an interesting game. If Kuna loses that game, I don't know if they're going to have the opportunity to go to the playoff to see if they have a chance to get into state. Like I said, they would end up playing, I believe they would end up playing the winner of Nampa and Mountain View if Kuna beats Boise. Middleton plays Centennial, a game Middleton is expected to win. They're rolling, another favorable matchup for them. Centennial got their first win against Timberline. Can they make it 2, or will they end up with 1 win on the season? We will see. Then we've got Highland and Madison, an out-of-conference game, which is intriguing because Madison has jumped up to, I believe, our 8th spot in the rankings. I'm going to pull that up here on my phone because I had it. Yeah, Madison is 8 right now. Post Falls jumped up 5 spots to number 7, which was bold, but we felt like Post Falls deserves some love. But anyway, Madison, number 8 Madison versus number 3 Highland. Could be interesting to see what happens there. What is Madison made of? All we know is that Madison lost to Owyhee at the start of the year. In a tough loss, kind of, the first week of the season, everybody kind of played ugly. Madison, from what we're hearing, did not play well. It was an ugly loss. They wanted that game back. But anyway, Madison Highland, that's intriguing. Meridian plays Capital. That's a game that Meridian will be favored in. Rocky Mountain just beat Capital 63-0. Meridian's got Capital. Meridian needs to stay healthy and get healthy because, like we've talked about before, they don't have quite the depth as maybe a Rocky Mountain. They have guys that are banged up, especially after that Rocky Mountain game. They need to get through that game and stay healthy and get healthy, in my opinion, and get ready for Eagle. Go play that Eagle game, and then they'll have another bye going into the state tournament to continue to get healthy. Kaden Sanchez is a guy that did not play. Their top offensive lineman, returning all league, did not play against Rocky Mountain, which I thought was going to potentially be the difference. But that Meridian offensive line played fantastic against Rocky, very surprisingly well, gave Martinez time to throw when he needed and did a really good job. But Kaden Sanchez is a guy that they need, in my opinion, to go win the state championship. He's that good up front. He's their leader, returning all league, like I said. So anyway, Meridian Capital, that's a game I believe Meridian should win handily. We will see. And then our game of the week, the Idaho Underground Sports game of the week, which I will be at. I believe Cherry will be joining me. I'm not sure who else will be there at this point. Nampa at Mountain View. And here's why this is relevant. Currently, Nampa is behind Eagle in their division in second, which means they would match up with Kuna instead of matching up with, I believe, potentially Middleton. That's off the top of my head. I honestly don't think that's correct. But anyway, it's a more favorable matchup with the 2 seed than it is the 3 seed, obviously. But can Nampa crack the top 4, the top 4, the power 4, the big 4, whatever you want to call them, Meridian, Rocky, Eagle, Mountain View. Those are always the top 4 teams in the SIC. Can Nampa go into Mountain View, beat Mountain View, and change the conversation? We will see. I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and pick Nampa. Probably going to pick the boys from Mountain View, who after a tough loss to Eagle are gonna want to they're gonna have something to say about it, especially that linebacking core. Owen McBride, Dawson Wall, and the boys. I don't think they lose at home on senior night to Nampa, but it is intriguing to see where Nampa is really at. Are they good enough to be in that top 4 conversation? I think they're probably the 5th best team in the league. I know Middleton will have something to say about that. Middleton beat Nampa earlier in the year. We got some feedback on that game. Like Nampa really played bad, essentially beat themselves in some ways with the penalties and whatnot. But listen, I mean, Middleton's right there as well. The tough loss to Meridian, 56-7. That's a tough one to swallow. But Meridian is Meridian at the same time. I'm sure if Nampa and Meridian played, it could be similar. But anyway, it's going to be a fun week. Nampa Mountain View game of the week. Tune into that, to Idaho Underground Sports Network. Last thing I'll talk about here before we move on is I want to come back to that Rocky Mountain Meridian game. Very, very, very good game. We've been talking about it all week, thinking about it. Everybody's coming out with a reel of it, and I made a reel just because there were so many electric plays. I mean, it's just a different level of it was just a different level of football. It was a different speed. It was a different level of physicality, and for anybody to beat either one of those teams, teams like Eagle and Mountain View can do it. Mountain View potentially should have and could have beaten Meridian earlier this year with a dropped touchdown pass at the end of the game, but you have to bring a different level of physicality and speed and a different mindset when you're playing against these teams. And it was really impressive football. It was fun to watch. And I want to give both those teams, once again, a shout out. They're neck and neck. It's right there. It's how's the ball going to bounce? Who's going to make the big plays? But anyway, what we'll talk about next week in Gym Session, we'll recap the games this week. Then we will get into the playoffs, the district championship game, obviously, that Eagle Meridian 2.0. It's going to be fun. And then we'll talk about all the matchups that are coming up to get into state. And then obviously off to the state tournament we go. It's going to be fun. Can't wait. Miss my guys. The podcast not the same with me sitting here rambling for 25 minutes. But I'm impressed, I kept it to 25 with how I like to talk. But anyway, shout out again to the players of the week. We've got Zeke Martinez, quarterback at Meridian. We've got Ian Duarte, wide receiver at Eagle. We've got Parker Rushton, running back at Bora. And then we've got the linebackers at Meridian. At linebacker U, with Carson Gooley, Max William, Nathan Reynolds, and Ryan Corder. I want to give Jake Hartsoe and King Kai and Corbin Meisner, the rest of that front, a shout out as well. They played fantastic. They did their jobs. They were all over the field as well. And that Meridian offense as well was very impressive. Spencer Allen and Mason Mayer, the corners from Meridian, who I talked about already, passed the test, A+. So anyway, thanks for tuning in to Idaho Underground Sports Network. We will be back next week with a full gem session, hopefully with my boys back as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe if you have not already. Tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your girlfriend, tell your dog. Subscribe, check us out, support what we're doing. We're going to continue to support all the athletes around Idaho. IUSN, thanks for tuning in.